It's Anthony with Life Soldier Living. Today we're going to talk about communication, the different types, and how effective communication can ultimately strengthen your relationships, whether it be personally with your children or your spouse or significant other, or in a professional setting if you're in charge of a team. Okay, but before we get started, make sure you subscribe below so you get notified when there's new content, because our goal here at Life Soldier Living is to provide content for you and value for you that's based on our experiences and our best practices. Okay, so let's get started. So there are 4 basic types of communicators, right? And you may have seen this packaged differently throughout your life or across the internet, but today we're going to talk about the assertive communicator, the aggressive communicator, the passive aggressive communicator, and the passive communicator. So let's start with the aggressive communicator, right? Maybe you are the aggressive communicator and you don't even know it, right? So you're generally the person that when they're communicating to someone or to a group of people, everyone else feels like they're walking on eggshells because they're afraid to interact, to have a discussion, to talk back because of the aggressiveness and most likely probably the offensive and demeaning way with which the aggressive communicator presents themselves, right? So for obvious reasons, this is not the ideal type of communication. So looking at it for a spouse or a significant other, right? If I'm the aggressive communicator and I'm trying to portray a problem or an issue, but I don't take into account my spouse's reaction or perspective, and she's afraid to even respond because the tone with which we talk to people, the inflection in our voice, it all matters, right? The old golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. Well, as much as that's been overplayed, there's some truth to it. So aggressive communicator, make everyone else think they're walking on eggshells. All right, next, let's talk about the passive communicator. The passive communicator probably doesn't even say anything. Whether it's fear that they won't be accepted or that they'll be judged, this is the communicator that doesn't really provide feedback. And in a healthy relationship, whether it be personal or professional, communication is all about feedback, right? You've got sender, you've got message, you've got receiver, and then to complete that loop, you've got feedback, okay? So the passive communicator rarely provides feedback, rarely provides anything for that matter, and usually it's just something internally, right, that they've got to get over themselves, right? And some of that comes down to self-management. I've done another video on self-management. All right, you can watch that here. Because before you can be an effective communicator with someone else, you've got to kind of be squared away for yourself. All right, and I understand that these are huge leaps sometimes, and that's why we say one step at a time, stay the course. Right, got to change your habits. Right. You can also watch the video on the power of habit and keystone techniques. Again, I highly recommend that book by Charles Duhigg. But you've got to change your habits to change your routines and to make changes in your life. All right. So I digress. Next, we're going to talk about the passive aggressive communicator. So the passive aggressive communicator is someone that ultimately kind of keeps you guessing on how they actually feel. So let's say that I have a problem, but then I'm constantly joking with my wife or with my kids, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, right? And they're not really sure if it's an actual issue or, is Anthony or Dad being serious? Is he joking around? The passive aggressiveness, you ultimately never really commit to one, what the problem is, and even more importantly, what the solution is, right? And that takes us to the assertive communicator, right? So the assertive communicator, that's where we all want to live, all right? And it's not easy. It takes practice and you've got to stick to it. But the assertive communicator communicates confidently. They communicate to others with respect, right? And they are bringing a problem or a stressor or, whatever it may be, but they're also bringing with that a recommendation or a solution for the way forward. Now, one thing the assertive communicator, at least in my experience, does, right? They are welcoming feedback and other perspectives. For example, if I am stressed out and I come to my wife and I want to talk about it, but all I'm doing is complaining, it's counterproductive, right? You always have to, especially as men, we always have to come, and I don't mean that in a sexist way, but we always have to come with a problem, and here's what I'm thinking for the solution or way ahead. And now I want to elicit that feedback, especially from my wife, right? She's my partner, she's my PIC, right? And I don't mean partner in crime, I mean partner in communication, okay? Feel free to use that. So if she's my partner in communication and I bring a problem or stressor or whatever it is to her, I want her feedback, right? Because then ultimately we can move forward together on a logical, agreed upon solution and way forward. All right. And I say this, it's easy to talk about, but I say this, full disclosure, I have not always communicated like this. All right. For years, and my wife can validate this, I was the closed off communicator. I internalized everything. And that may be a combination of things, right? I lost my mother when I was young, so I emotionally closed off for many, many years. And then coupled with probably deployments in the military, right? There was this culture, and to some extent it still exists today in certain jobs within the military, but we just didn't talk about things that happened, and that was okay. I will tell you from my personal experience, it eventually will explode in your face. Whatever the stressor or the problem is, if you don't communicate it with someone, and again, it doesn't have to be your wife or your husband or your significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter. Whoever you have that you can elicit feedback and who will tell you the truth, right? That's ultimately what we want. Because, like I said, internalizing and not communicating effectively, it will damage relationships. It will close you off from people, all right? And no one's going to want to be around you, all right? Luckily, I have a wife that probably just put up with it until I realized that it was damaging our relationship. And I had to look inside internally, not to not communicate, but to fix what I saw was causing a problem. And we started talking about it, and it's not a problem anymore. Remember, when you're bringing issues or problems or something that's stressing you out, bring a solution, okay? And again, whether I'm talking to my children or I'm talking to a team at work that I'm in charge of or my significant other, right? And this comes back to some leadership attributes, right? So a good leader wants to elicit feedback and get other perspectives, right? I don't always have the answer, nor should I. I want to surround myself with people that can help me collectively help us perform better, move in a better direction. Okay, so elicit that feedback, get other people's perspective. Okay, and then you proceed forward with the best course of action. Now, at the beginning of this, I said I was going to give you some tips to kind of help starting this. First, actually, I'm going to give you 4 tips. First, try and identify which type of communicator that you are. Are you assertive? Are you aggressive? Passive aggressive? All right. Again, we all want to live in that assertive realm of communication. All right. So here at Life Soldier Living, the second tip I'm going to give you is, so we are lifelong learners. We're always striving to be better. So if you're the person that's always talking and never listening, all right, you're never going to learn, because you have to listen to learn. All right. You eventually have to pause, close the trap, and absorb some information. All right. That's called learning. All right. The third tip, and this can be, one-on-one communication, or in today's society, this could be social media. You have to resist the temptation to get into an argument. All right. Too many times people are, the way they're communicating, they are trying to start a fire to elicit a response. And I am not by any means telling you don't have the right to respond. I 100% support freedom of speech. However, there are probably times, just because we can type a response, that doesn't mean we should. Or if you have the type of spouse that is trying to push your buttons, don't take the bait, right? Openly talk about it, instead of attacking someone, say this is bothering me and this is why it's bothering me. And here's how I think we should move forward. What do you think, right? There's just little techniques. The words you use matter. The tone you use matters, okay? It all matters. And then the last tip that I'm going to give you, right? So, and it kind of comes into communication. So you've heard the adage, time is money. I don't disagree. It's overused, but I'm going to take that and tweak it a little bit. So I think time is value, right? If you've watched any of my other videos, whether it was my self-management video or my smart goal setting video, right? I talk about how you've got to focus on what gives you a return on your investment. So professionally, you're looking at revenue producing activities, what I call high value activities, because then personally, it's the same thing, right? So if I want to get a return on my investment personally, then I want to spend time with my kids, spend time with my wife, right? That is a high value activity for me. And if I can't communicate effectively with them, then I'm wasting that time, okay? So time is value. So if you keep that in the back of your mind, identify what type of communicator that you are, it will strengthen your relationships, whether personal setting or professionally. I guarantee it. But you've got to work at it, all right? So start out by setting a SMART goal. Start out by identifying what you need to change, self-management, right? If you haven't noticed by now, goal setting, the self-management, the communication, it's all intertwined, both in our personal lives and in our professional lives. All right, I hope you got some value out of this. I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor and post in the comments on what type of communicator you think you are. And if not, what is the worst or best experience you've had throughout your life? I appreciate it. Stay the course. Make sure you visit lifesoldierliving.com. It's a blog where you get perspective not only from me, but from my wife as well. And then until next time, take care.